The emergency council met in the Grand Chamber, a room at the heart of Confluence 7 that Taman had only seen in orientation videos. It was circular, with walls that seemed to be made of flowing light. Representatives from all major galactic civilizations attended, either in person or through holographic projection. Taman sat at a table in the center, feeling very much like he was on trial. He had slept for 6 hours, showered, and changed into clean clothes. Hana had brought him a proper meal instead of ramyun. He felt almost human again, which was good because he suspected he would need all his mental energy for whatever came next. Prism Master called the session to order. We are here to address an unprecedented situation. The human representative, Dr. Taman Kwan, has produced 12 verified solutions to the Eternal Lock. This contradicts our foundational understanding of the puzzle's nature. Before we proceed, all 12 solutions will be displayed for the Council to examine. Holographic projections filled the air above the table. Each of Taman's solutions appeared as a three-dimensional structure of light and mathematics. Council members studied them in silence. Taman watched their reactions. Some looked confused. Others seemed almost angry. A few appeared fascinated. Archon Velis spoke first. I move that these solutions be rejected. The human must have used some form of technological enhancement. Probability manipulation. Quantum observation that alters outcomes. Something that violates the spirit of fair competition. Hana stood immediately. That's absurd. Dr. Kwan worked with paper and pencil. Everything he did is documented. Your accusation has no basis. Then explain how one human working alone surpasses the combined intellect of the Mordani collective. Velis shot back. We are thousands of minds operating in perfect unity. We found one solution, the correct solution, through days of flawless calculation. He found 12 in the same time using primitive methods. The only logical conclusion is that he cheated. Taman raised his hand. Everyone turned to look at him. He suddenly felt very small. Can I say something? Prism Master's crystalline form pulsed. You may speak, Dr. Kwan. I didn't cheat. I promise. I'm not even that smart. Back on Earth, I'm like middle of the road at best. There are way better mathematicians than me. I just looked at the problem differently. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Can I ask a question? Proceed. When you found your solution, Archon Velis, did you keep looking for more? Velis's expression hardened. Why would we? The puzzle was proven to have one solution. We found that solution. Continuing was illogical. Right, but what if the proof was wrong? What if someone made an assumption 300 years ago that seemed reasonable, but turned out to be incorrect? Aquilith Overseer spoke up. Are you suggesting that our ancestors made an error in logic? We do not make errors. Our thought processes are mathematically pure. Taman rubbed his face. This was harder than teaching calculus to hungover students. Okay, look. I'm not saying anyone is stupid or bad at math, but maybe the error wasn't in the logic. Maybe it was in the assumptions that the logic was built on. He stood up and approached one of the holographic displays. Can I manipulate this? Yes, Prism Master said. Taman reached into the hologram and started rearranging elements. When I first looked at the Eternal Lock, everyone had already told me it had one solution. But I'm human. We're kind of stubborn about being told there's only one way to do something. It's cultural, maybe. Throughout our history, people kept telling us things were impossible. Flying, going to space, splitting atoms, curing diseases. Every time we said, let's try anyway, and figured it out. He pulled apart one section of the puzzle, rotating it. I didn't look for one solution. I looked for patterns, ways the system could balance. And I found that if you don't constrain yourself to finding just one answer, the puzzle opens up. It becomes something else. Not a lock with one key, but a system with multiple stable states. A representative from the Thalen Concordance, a species known for philosophical inquiry, spoke. Dr. Kwan, you mentioned cultural factors. Expand on this. Humans are really good at pattern matching, Taman explained. It's how our brains work. We see connections between things even when they're not obvious. Sometimes we're wrong and see patterns that don't exist. But sometimes we're right and find shortcuts that pure logic might miss. We also don't like accepting limitations. If someone tells us something can't be done, our first instinct is usually to try to do it anyway, just to see what happens. Spite, another council member said. Your species operates on spite? Sometimes, Taman admitted, but also curiosity. We really want to know what happens when we push boundaries. Even when it's not smart or safe, we want to see what's on the other side. Velis stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We are discussing the fundamental nature of mathematics, not human psychology. The question remains, how many solutions does the eternal lock actually have? That's what I've been trying to figure out, Taman said. I found 12, but the pattern suggests more exist. Many more. The puzzle might have dozens or even hundreds of solutions, depending on how you define the constraint space. The council erupted in noise. Multiple species tried to speak at once. Prism Master had to pulse a bright light to restore order. This is impossible, Aquilith Elder said. If the eternal lock has hundreds of solutions, then our entire approach to constraint mathematics is flawed. Centuries of work built on false foundations. Not false, Taman said quickly. Just incomplete. Your math is right. Your logic is perfect. But maybe you are asking the wrong question. Instead of what is the one solution, maybe the question should have been, what are all the possible solutions? A long silence followed. Taman could see the implications dawning on faces across the chamber. If one fundamental puzzle had been misunderstood for 300 years, what else might need reevaluation? A representative from the Teln Imperium, the cyborg species, spoke. We should test this. Take other solved problems and approach them with this human perspective. See if we find additional solutions we missed. I agree, said the Thalen delegate, but we must be careful. If we announce that our mathematical foundations are unstable, it could cause panic. Many technologies rely on these principles. Hana cleared her throat. With respect, isn't that more reason to investigate? If there's a flaw in the foundations, better to find it now than when a critical system fails. More arguments erupted. Some council members wanted to suppress Taman's findings. Others wanted to broadcast them immediately. A few suggested starting a comprehensive review of all major mathematical proofs. The debate stretched for hours. Finally, Prism Master called for order again. We will vote. First, do we accept Dr. Kwan's solutions as valid? All in favor? The vote was overwhelmingly in favor. Even Velis reluctantly voted yes. Second, do we award Dr. Kwan and humanity the prize of symposium victory and a seat on the Galactic Logic Council? This vote was more divided, but it still passed. Third, do we initiate a full review of constraint mathematics and related fields? This vote also passed, though several members abstained. Prism Master turned to Taman. Dr. Kwan, you have created a crisis in galactic mathematics. You have also potentially opened doors to new understanding that could benefit all species. The Council recognizes both outcomes. You are hereby declared the winner of the Centennial Logic Symposium. Humanity is granted a seat on the Logic Council. Taman blinked. Wait, really? I won? But I barely understand what I did. Perhaps that is why you succeeded, Prism Master said. You approached an impossible problem without the weight of 3 centuries of assumptions. Sometimes ignorance is an advantage. Velis stood and approached Taman. For a moment, Taman thought the Mordani representative might attack him. Instead, Velis extended a hand. His face showed something between respect and frustration. Your approach is chaotic and unpredictable, Velis said. It offends our sense of order. But it works. The Mordani Collective acknowledges your victory, human, though we do not understand it. Taman shook his hand, still feeling dazed. Thanks, I think. As the council session ended and members began to leave, Fracture 9 approached Taman. The young Quillith's lights pulsed with what Taman had learned to recognize as excitement. Dr. Kwan, may I ask you something? Sure. When you found the first solution and realized there might be more, why did you keep looking? Would not one solution have been sufficient to satisfy the competition requirements? Taman thought about it. I guess I just wanted to see how deep the pattern went. Like, if I could find 2 solutions, maybe there were 3. And if 3, why not 4? It was interesting. I wanted to know what I'd find. Curiosity, Fracture 9 said. Simply curiosity. Yeah, is that weird? No, the Quillith said, lights pulsing brighter. I think it might be the most important thing I have learned at this symposium. Taman sat at his desk surrounded by 4 Quillith overseers, Ambassador Hana, and a growing crowd of spectators who had somehow gotten past security. His cubicle, designed for one person, now felt very cramped. He could feel sweat dripping down his back. He said, looking at the sea of papers spread across his desk. Which part do you want to see first? Prism 7's crystalline form pulsed with rapid, almost frantic colors. Start with Solution 1. Explain your methodology. Taman picked up his first notebook, the one with coffee stains on the cover. Okay, so when I first looked at the eternal lock, it reminded me of a topology problem from my graduate work. You have this system of connected nodes with constraints, right? Everyone assumes the constraints are rigid boundaries. But what if they're more like guidelines? He started drawing on a fresh sheet of paper, his hand moving quickly. If you treat the energy flow as a flexible system that can balance in multiple configurations, rather than a rigid structure with only one solution, you start to see alternatives. Solution 1 uses the most direct path. Everything flows in the obvious directions. It works, but it's kind of boring. One of the overseers interfaced with a holographic display. After a moment, lights flashed. Verified. This solution satisfies all constraints. Of course it does, Taman said, sounding slightly offended. I checked it like 3 times. Anyway, solution 2 is more interesting. If you rotate the perspective by 90 degrees and invert the energy flow in sectors 3 and 7, you get this beautiful symmetry. See? He showed them another diagram. Verified, the overseer said again, but this time its voice carried a note of something that might have been distress. Taman continued, warming to his subject. He had always been better at explaining things when he could write them down. Solution 3 treats the whole system as a torus instead of a sphere. You have to fold the dimensional space a bit, but it's mathematically sound. Solution 4 uses quantum superposition principles. 5 is my personal favorite because it's so elegant. Look at how everything mirrors itself here. He went through each solution, drawing diagrams and explaining the mathematics. The overseers verified each one. With every verification, the crystalline being's color patterns became more chaotic. Fracture 9, standing at the back of the crowd, had stopped pulsing altogether and was now just glowing a steady, shocked white. By the time Taman reached solution 11, the crowd in and around his cubicle had tripled. Word had spread through the station. Competitors from other species pushed closer to see. Archon Velis himself arrived, his Mordani entourage parting the crowd like a wave. This is impossible, Velis declared. His voice carried the weight of 1,000 minds speaking in unison. The eternal lock has one solution. This has been proven mathematically. The human is making errors. No errors detected, the overseer at the holographic display said quietly. All solutions verify. All satisfy the constraints perfectly. Velis's face showed several emotions at once, which was unsettling given that he was technically thousands of individuals. Then the verification system is broken. Run independent checks. 3 more overseers arrived with portable computing cores. They began running independent verifications on Taman's solutions. The wait was tense. Taman used the time to eat another cup of ramyun. He was getting hungry, and nervous situations always made him hungrier. All solutions verified independently, one of the new overseers announced. 11 distinct solutions to the eternal lock, each mathematically sound, each satisfying all original constraints. The crowd erupted in noise. Beings in the viewing galleries pressed against the glass to see better. Camera drones swarmed closer. Hana stood in the corner of the cubicle, her face cycling between shock, pride, and terror. Taman swallowed his mouthful of noodles. Is 11 okay? Because I'm pretty sure I can find the 12th one. I was working on it when you came in. Just need maybe another hour or 2. Prism 7 turned to face him fully. Dr. Kwan, do you understand what you have done? Solved the puzzle? Hopefully? Taman looked uncertain. Though I guess I was supposed to find only one solution. Sorry about that. I'm not great at following instructions. My students complain about it all the time. I get distracted by interesting tangents. The eternal lock has resisted solution for 300 years. Our greatest mathematicians proved it had only one answer. This proof was checked and rechecked. It was foundational to our understanding of constraint mathematics. Oh. Taman wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Well, maybe the proof was wrong? I mean, I haven't looked at it, but if there are 11 solutions, then the proof that there's only one must have an error somewhere. The silence that followed was profound. In that silence, Taman realized he might have just suggested that the galaxy's foremost experts in logic had made a fundamental mistake. His face flushed red, respectfully, he added weakly. Archon Velis stepped forward. Show me solution 12. If you are so certain it exists, find it now. Prove this is not some elaborate trick. Taman looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at Hana's pleading expression. Then he looked at his papers. Okay, but can everyone be quiet? I can't think with all this noise. The crowd fell silent. Taman turned to a fresh page in his notebook and started working. His pencil scratched across paper. Occasionally he erased something and redrew it. He muttered to himself in Korean, working through calculations. The spectators watched, barely breathing. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Taman's hand cramped and he switched to his left hand, which made his writing messier but still legible. At 45 minutes he paused, stared at his work, checked something in an earlier notebook. Then his eyes widened. Oh, he said. Oh, that's clever. The puzzle is actually self-referential. Each solution implies the existence of others through symmetry. It's like a mathematical fractal. Solution 12 doesn't just exist, it proves that more solutions must exist. He wrote furiously for another 10 minutes, then set down his pencil. There, it's solution 12. And I hate to say this, but if I'm right about the fractal nature, there might not be a finite number of solutions. There could be dozens, maybe hundreds. The overseer verified the 12th solution. Confirmed. Valid solution. Velas stared at the holographic display showing Taman's work. This is not possible. Our collective calculated for days. We found one solution. The solution. How can one individual working alone with primitive tools find 12? Taman shrugged. Different perspective? I don't know. Maybe because I wasn't told there was only one solution before I started? If you go into a problem assuming there's only one answer, you stop looking once you find it. I'm used to problems having multiple approaches. That's how I teach. There's usually more than one way to prove a theorem or solve an equation. A quillith that Taman hadn't seen before entered the cubicle. This one was larger than the overseer's, its crystalline structure more complex and ancient-looking. The crowd immediately made space. I am Prism Master, Chief Overseer of the Symposium, it said. Dr. Kwan, you have created a situation unprecedented in symposium history. We must convene an emergency council. The competition is suspended until we can fully evaluate these findings. Am I in trouble? Taman asked nervously. Trouble? No, but you have potentially invalidated 300 years of our mathematical framework. You must understand the eternal lock was not just a puzzle. It was a cornerstone of our logical systems. If it has multiple solutions, then many other proofs and theorems built on similar assumptions may also be flawed. Taman's face went pale. Oh no. I didn't mean to break anything. I was just trying to solve the puzzle. I know, Prism Master said, and its voice was almost gentle. That may be the most remarkable part of this. You approached an impossible problem with no preconceptions and found what we had all missed. The question now is, what else have we missed? Hana finally spoke up from her corner. What happens now? Now, Prism Master said, we must decide if the symposium can continue. And we must determine what this means for humanity's place in our galactic community. Dr. Kwan has demonstrated a cognitive approach we do not understand. This must be studied. Taman raised his hand hesitantly. Can I ask something? If the competition is suspended, does that mean I can get some sleep? I've been awake for like 40 hours and I'm starting to see double. Despite everything, despite the crisis and the crowds and the galaxy-shaking implications, several beings in the room made sounds that might have been laughter. The first day passed in a blur of equations and sketches. Taman barely noticed time moving. His cubicle became a disaster zone of crumpled papers, empty ramyun containers, and notebooks filled with diagrams. He had found 3 solutions to the eternal lock and was working on a 4th. Outside his workspace, the atmosphere in the competition hall grew tense. Through the transparent walls of his cubicle, Taman could see other competitors. The Mordani Collective's workspace glowed with synchronized neural activity, hundreds of minds thinking as one, processing the puzzle from every angle simultaneously. Their representative, Archon Velas, sat motionless in the center, while data streamed through holographic displays around him. The Quillith team worked in perfect mathematical harmony. Their crystalline bodies pulsed with light as they calculated probabilities and ran simulations. They made no errors. They could not make errors. Their logic was perfect by definition. In another section, a team of cyborgs from the Teln Imperium had connected themselves to quantum computing arrays. Machines hummed and sparked as they processed trillions of calculations per second. Taman chewed on his pencil and drew another diagram. His approach was much simpler. He looked at the puzzle like it was a knot that could be untied from different directions. Each solution he found revealed a new pattern, a new way the system could balance itself. By hour 36, several competitors had withdrawn. The pressure was too much, or they had reached dead ends in their calculations. The viewing galleries above the competition hall filled with spectators. News crews from across the galaxy recorded the event. This was the most watched intellectual competition in known space. Ambassador Hana visited during a break period. She looked stressed. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "How's it going?" she asked, stepping into his cubicle and immediately wrinkling her nose at the smell. "Taman, when did you last shower?" "Yesterday, maybe?" He didn't look up from his notebook. "I'm kind of in the middle of something. Everyone else looks very busy and very confident. The Mordani are favored to win. Again." She picked up one of his notebooks and flipped through it. The pages were covered in sketches and equations with notes in Korean scribbled in the margins. "Are you making progress?" "Yeah, I found a few solutions. I'm just trying to figure out which one they want." Hana froze. "A few? Taman, there's only one solution. That's the whole point of the challenge." He finally looked up at her, confusion on his face. "What? No, there are definitely multiple solutions. I have 4 right now, and I'm pretty sure there are more. See if you approach the constraint system as flexible rather than rigid, and if you consider that the energy flows can balance in different configurations, then—" "Stop." Hana held up her hand. Her face had gone pale. "You're telling me you found 4 solutions to a puzzle that supposedly has only one?" "Well, yeah. Is that bad? Am I doing something wrong?" Taman looked genuinely worried. "I thought maybe they wanted the most elegant one, or the most efficient, but they're all mathematically equivalent, so I wasn't sure how to choose." Hana sat down heavily on the edge of his desk. "I need to think about this. Don't tell anyone else yet. Just keep working, okay?" Taman watched her leave, then shrugged and went back to his sketches. By hour 48, the competition had narrowed to the serious contenders. The viewing galleries were packed. Betting pools across the galaxy favored the Mordani at 3-to-1 odds. The Quillith were second favorites. Earth's representative wasn't even listed in the top 50 predictions. Taman found his 5th solution and immediately saw how it could lead to a 6th. The pattern was becoming clearer. The puzzle wasn't actually about finding the one correct answer. It was about understanding how the system could balance itself, and there were many ways to achieve that balance. He stretched and decided to take a walk. His legs had gone numb from sitting too long. The competition hall was enormous, with hundreds of cubicles arranged in concentric circles around a central display showing the eternal lock. He wandered past other workspaces, careful not to disturb anyone. The Mordani section was impressive. Archon Velis remained in his meditation pose, but the holographic displays around him showed incredible progress. They were close to a solution, maybe hours away. Taman found a viewing gallery and bought something that looked like coffee from a food dispenser. It tasted like metal and regret, but the caffeine helped. He stood by a window looking out at the red dwarf star and let his mind wander. Sometimes the best solutions came when you stopped actively thinking about the problem. A Quillith approached him. Not Fracture 9, but a larger one with deeper colors pulsing through its crystalline structure. "This must be someone important. You are the human," it said. "Not a question." "Guilty," Taman said. "I mean, yes. That's me. I am Prism 7, one of the overseers. We have been monitoring all competitors' progress. Your approach is unusual. Is that bad? I know I'm probably behind everyone else. You work on paper." Again, not a question. The Quillith seemed fascinated. "You use physical writing implements. You consume primitive food. And yet your workspace shows significant activity." "I think better with paper," Taman admitted. "I know it's old-fashioned. My students make fun of me for it. But there's something about physically writing things down that helps me see patterns." "Patterns," Prism 7 repeated. The lights within its crystalline body swirled. "What patterns do you see in the eternal lock?" Taman hesitated. Was he allowed to talk about this? But the overseer had asked, and it seemed rude to refuse. "Well, it's like a web, right? Everything connects. But people are looking for the one way everything connects perfectly. I'm trying to find all the ways it could connect, because understanding the full possibility space seems more interesting than just finding one answer." Prism 7 was silent for a long moment. The full possibility space. An interesting perspective. "How many possibilities have you found?" 6 so far, but I think there are more. Maybe a lot more. It's hard to say without mapping the entire system. Taman sipped his terrible coffee. Why do you ask? Curiosity, Prism 7 said. A human trait, I understand. Perhaps we share it. The overseer glided away, leaving Taman confused but too tired to worry about it. He finished his coffee and returned to his cubicle. Fresh paper, fresh pencil. Solution number 7 appeared after 2 hours of work. Number 8 took only 40 minutes once he saw the pattern. With 12 hours remaining, Archon Velis made an announcement. The Mordani Collective had found the solution. The news spread through the station like wildfire. Spectators cheered. The betting pools paid out. It was over, except Taman didn't stop working. He hadn't been paying attention to the announcements. He was too focused on solution number 9, which had revealed something interesting about solutions 7 and 8. They were related, part of a larger pattern. If he was right, there should be at least 3 more solutions hiding in the mathematical structure. Hana burst into his cubicle. Did you hear? The Mordani won. It's over, Taman looked up, his hair sticking up at odd angles. His eyes were bloodshot. Oh, that's nice for them. Hey, look at this. If you approach the constraint matrix as a group rather than a set, there's this beautiful symmetry that emerges. It's like the puzzle is hiding extra solutions in plain sight. Taman, the competition is over. Is it? But I haven't submitted anything yet. Don't we all get to present our solutions? He looked genuinely confused. I'm up to 11 now. I wanted to get to at least 12 before time runs out. 12 feels like a good number. Nice and even, well divisible by a lot of factors. Hana opened her mouth, then closed it. Then opened it again. You have 11 solutions? Yeah, working on 12. Do you think they'd give me 2 more hours? I know I'm slow compared to everyone else. I feel bad about holding things up. Before Hana could respond, Prism 7 entered the cubicle, followed by 3 other Quillith overseers. Their crystalline forms were flickering with rapid color changes. Behind them, Fracture 9's lights pulsed in what looked like agitation. Dr. Quan, Prism 7 said, we need to see your work. All of it, immediately. Taman Quan stared out the viewport of the shuttle and tried not to panic. Stars stretched past in long streaks of light as the ship moved through hyperspace toward Confluence 7. He clutched his worn backpack against his chest and wondered, not for the first time, how this had happened. 3 weeks ago, he had been teaching calculus to bored undergraduates at Seoul National University. Then the letter arrived. Not an email, an actual physical letter that materialized on his desk in a flash of blue light. The Galactic Logic Symposium cordially invited Dr. Taman Quan to represent Earth at the centennial gathering of the galaxy's greatest mathematical minds. His first thought was that his students were pranking him. His second thought, after the letter refused to catch fire and appeared to be written in some kind of living ink that shifted between languages, was that he should probably tell someone important. That someone turned out to be Ambassador Hana Cho, who appeared at his apartment 6 hours later with 2 security officers and a very tight smile. Dr. Quan, she had said, you've been invited to the most prestigious intellectual competition in the known galaxy. This is either a wonderful opportunity or a catastrophic mistake. I'm guessing the second one, Taman had replied. Now, sitting in the shuttle with Hana across from him reviewing documents on a tablet, he was certain it was a mistake. The other passengers were not human. One looked like a floating collection of crystals that hummed softly. Another appeared to be made of liquid metal that kept shifting shape. A third was simply a glowing orb that left after images when it moved. Stop fidgeting, Hana said without looking up from her tablet. She was in her early 40s with sharp eyes and hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a formal diplomatic suit that probably cost more than Taman's car. You're representing Earth. Try to look confident. I teach topology to students who'd rather be literally anywhere else, Taman said. Confidence isn't really my thing. Fake it. Hana finally looked at him. Listen, I'll be direct. Earth is not respected out here. We're a fringe species, new, barely noticed. Most galactic species think we're cute at best and primitive at worst. This symposium could change that, or it could make us look like complete idiots. No pressure then. Just don't finish last. That's all I'm asking. Don't embarrass us. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace and Confluence 7 appeared before them. Taman forgot to breathe. The station was enormous, a perfect sphere of silver and glass that orbited a red dwarf star. Light sparkled across its surface like a city floating in space. Ships of every imaginable design swarmed around it. From sleek vessels that looked like metal birds to massive, blocky transports to ships that seemed to be made of pure energy. "It's beautiful," Taman whispered. "It's neutral territory," Hana said. "No weapons, no warfare, no politics. Just pure intellectual competition. The symposium happens once every 100 years. Species send their best and brightest. You'll be competing against beings who have been studying mathematics since before humans invented writing. You're really good at the pep talks. I'm good at managing expectations." The docking process took an hour. When they finally stepped onto the station, Taman felt the subtle shift in gravity. Everything looked clean and sterile, with walls that seemed to glow from within. Aliens of every type walked, floated, or slithered past. Taman tried not to stare at a creature that appeared to be a walking plant with 3 eyes on stalks. A Quillith approached them. At least Hana's briefing had said the crystalline beings were called Quillith. Up close, it looked like a human-sized formation of clear crystal that pulsed with inner light. Patterns of color moved across its surface in waves. "Welcome," it said, though Taman couldn't see a mouth. The voice seemed to come from the air itself. "I am Fracture 9, assigned to assist Earth's representative. Your quarters are prepared. The opening ceremony begins in 3 hours." They followed Fracture 9 through corridors filled with beings that looked like they had stepped out of dreams or nightmares. Their quarters were small but clean, with a bed that looked normal enough and a bathroom that Taman spent 10 minutes figuring out. Hana had the connecting room. "Change into something presentable," she called through the door, "and for the love of everything, try to smile." The opening ceremony was held in a vast amphitheater that curved around a central stage. Taman sat in the section marked for competitors, feeling very small. There were 47 species represented. He recognized none of them from Earth's limited contact with the galactic community. The human section was just him, alone, while other species had teams of supporters and advisors. A being that looked like a collection of floating geometric shapes took the stage. The crowd fell silent. The shapes rearranged themselves and a voice boomed out, translated instantly into every language. "Welcome to the Centennial Logic Symposium. For 300 cycles, the greatest minds in the galaxy have gathered here to test themselves against the impossible. This cycle, we present the grand challenge." The lights dimmed. A massive hologram appeared above the stage, filling the entire dome of the amphitheater. Taman leaned forward, studying it. It was beautiful and complex. A 3-dimensional web of glowing lines connected nodes of light. Symbols he didn't recognize floated near each connection. Energy seemed to flow through the structure in patterns that made his head hurt to follow. "This is the eternal lock," the announcer continued. "A logic puzzle that has resisted solution for 300 years. It is proven that only one configuration satisfies all constraints. Find that configuration, and your species joins the Galactic Logic Council. You have 72 hours. The hologram rotated slowly. Taman watched the patterns, his mind automatically trying to map the relationships. It was like a circuit board mixed with a mathematical proof mixed with something else he couldn't quite name. Beside him, a being made of rippling shadows was already muttering calculations. Across the aisle, a cyborg creature with 6 arms was interfacing directly with a holographic display. The competitor section included legends. Taman had been briefed on the favorites. Archon Velis of the Mordani Collective sat in the center section, surrounded by empty seats that all somehow connected to his mind. The Mordani were a hive consciousness, thousands of beings thinking as one. They had won the last 8 symposiums. Near the front, several Quillith clustered together, their crystalline forms pulsing in synchronized patterns. They were considered the universe's masters of pure logic, incapable of making errors in reasoning. And then there was Taman, one human, with a backpack full of notebooks and pencils because he had forgotten to pack anything more advanced. The announcement ended. Competitors were directed to their workspaces. Taman followed Fracture 9 through winding corridors to a small cubicle with a desk, a chair, and a holographic projector that displayed the puzzle. He set down his backpack and pulled out a notebook. "Do you require computational assistance?" Fracture 9 asked. "Access to mathematical cores? Quantum processing arrays?" Taman said. "Do you have any instant ramyun? I think better when I eat." The Quillith's crystalline form flickered with what might have been confusion. "I will inquire." Alone in his cubicle, Taman looked at the hologram of the eternal lock. He pulled out a pencil and started sketching. The puzzle reminded him of something from his graduate work, a topology problem about connected spaces. He drew a simplified version, reducing the three-dimensional complexity to 2 dimensions on paper. Okay, he muttered to himself. One solution. They're sure about that. But why? What makes them so certain? He worked for an hour, filling pages with diagrams and equations. Outside his cubicle, he could hear the sounds of other competitors working. Machines humming, voices chanting in unison. The crackle of energy. Fracture 9 returned with something that looked vaguely like ramyun. Taman ate it while staring at his notes, and then he saw it. A possible solution. He checked it 3 times. It worked. Every constraint satisfied. Every node connected properly. He said to the empty room. That wasn't so bad. Then he looked at the problem from a different angle, literally. He turned his notebook 90 degrees and saw another solution. His eyes widened. Oh, Taman said softly. Oh, this is interesting. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by quantum communicators and hyperspace relays. A human had won the Centennial Logic Symposium. Not just won, but fundamentally changed the nature of the challenge itself. Within hours, Taman's face was on news broadcasts from one side of the galaxy to the other. He watched one such broadcast from his quarters, still processing everything. A news anchor who looked like a floating jellyfish was interviewing a panel of experts. The implications are staggering, one expert said, a being made of crystallized sound waves. If the eternal lock has multiple solutions, how many other fundamental problems need re-examination? Our entire technological civilization is built on mathematical certainty. Some are calling this the human revolution, another expert added. This Dr. Kwan has introduced a new way of thinking. Lateral derivation theory, they're calling it. The assumption that multiple solutions might exist for problems we thought were solved. Taman turned off the broadcast. I just wanted to solve a puzzle, he muttered to himself. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find Hana looking exhausted but happy. Behind her stood a being he didn't recognize. It looked vaguely humanoid, but its skin was a deep blue and its eyes were entirely silver. Taman, this is Ambassador Minho from Kepler Station. He's part of Earth's permanent delegation here. Minho bowed slightly. Dr. Kwan, I've been instructed by Earth's government to offer you any position you want. Name it, any university, any research facility, any salary. You're a hero. Taman sat down heavily on his bed. I don't want to be a hero. I just want to go home and teach my classes. Maybe with better funding for the math department, though. Our equipment is really outdated. Done, Minho said immediately. Anything else? Can people stop making such a big deal about this? I feel like I accidentally broke something important and everyone is congratulating me for it. Hana sat beside him. You did break something important. You broke the assumption that there's only one way to solve certain problems. But that's not a bad thing. You opened doors that were closed. Over the next few days, Taman was invited to speak at universities and research centers across the galaxy. Most invitations he politely declined. But some were too interesting to pass up. He gave a lecture at the Quileth Mathematical Institute, explaining his approach to a room full of crystalline beings who watched in fascinated silence. The thing about humans, he told them, is that we're messy thinkers. Our brains are pattern-matching machines that sometimes see patterns that don't exist. But we're also really good at finding connections that pure logic might miss. We make leaps, we guess. We try things just to see what happens. It's inefficient. It leads to a lot of mistakes, but sometimes those mistakes show us something new. A Quileth elder asked, how do you teach this approach? Can it be learned? I don't know, Taman admitted. I teach math to students who mostly don't want to learn math. My main strategy is to make them curious enough to try. I show them multiple ways to solve the same problem. I encourage them to find their own approaches. Sometimes they find methods I never thought of. The reaction to this statement was significant. The idea that students might teach teachers, that knowledge could flow both ways, was revolutionary to some species whose learning was strictly hierarchical. Meanwhile, the galactic scientific community began the massive task of reviewing mathematical foundations. Teams formed to re-examine old proofs. Several solved problems quickly revealed additional solutions when approached with human-inspired thinking. An ancient equation that had stumped the galaxy for a millennium yielded 3 new solutions in the first week of investigation. Not everyone was happy about this. The Mordani collective split into factions. Some wanted to learn from humanity's chaotic approach. Others saw it as a threat to their ordered existence. Archon Velis led the faction that embraced change, surprising everyone, including himself. The human defeated us not through superior logic, but through refusing to accept our assumptions, Velis announced in a public statement. This is a lesson the collective must learn. Order and certainty are valuable, but so is the willingness to question what we believe to be true. The division in the Mordani was peaceful, but profound. It marked the first time in their history that the collective had chosen to think in multiple directions simultaneously. The Quillith overseers offered Taman a permanent position as a special consultant. We need someone who thinks differently, Prism Master explained. Someone who will question our assumptions. Someone who will ask, but what if there's another way? Taman accepted with conditions. I'm not giving up my teaching position on Earth, and I work remotely most of the time. And you have to be okay with me being wrong a lot. Because I'm wrong way more often than I'm right. That is acceptable, Prism Master said. Being wrong frequently means you are trying frequently. This is valuable. 3 months after the symposium, Taman was back in Seoul teaching his regular classes. His students noticed he seemed different. More confident, maybe. Or just more tired. The university had given him a new office and upgraded the math department's equipment. They'd also hired 2 new professors to share his teaching load. Between classes, he video called with Fracture 9. The young Quillith had become his regular collaborator. They were working on a new project together, examining other supposedly single-solution puzzles. I found something interesting, Fracture 9 said, lights pulsing with excitement. The paradox of infinite bridges. It has been unsolved for 800 years. I think there might be multiple approaches. Send me what you have, Taman said, already feeling the familiar excitement of a new problem. Let's see what we can find. Later that day, he met with his undergraduate students. They were working through a topology problem. One student, Yunji, raised her hand. Professor, the textbook says this problem has only one solution, but I found another way to solve it. Did I do something wrong? Taman smiled. Show me. Yunji walked through her solution. It was different from the textbook approach. More intuitive, but equally valid. Taman checked her work carefully. This is perfect, he said. You found an alternative solution. That's excellent work, but the book says there's only one. Books can be wrong, or incomplete. Always question what you read, even from respected sources, especially from respected sources. The most important thing you can learn in mathematics isn't how to solve problems the way you're told. It's how to find your own path to solutions. The class ended and students filed out. Taman stayed behind thinking about how much had changed. A few months ago, he'd been a nobody professor at an average university, teaching students who barely paid attention. Now he was a galactic celebrity, consulting with alien civilizations, helping to reshape mathematical understanding across hundreds of worlds. His phone buzzed. A message from Ambassador Hana, another invitation. The Teln Imperium wants you to speak at their quantum mathematics conference. 3 months from now. Interested? Taman thought about it. The Teln were the cyborg species, the ones who'd used quantum computing arrays during the symposium. It might be interesting to see how they approached problems. Maybe, he typed back, but only if they have good food. I'm not eating space rations for a week. That evening, as he prepared lecture notes for the next day's class, Galactic News played in the background. The anchor was discussing yet another old problem that had been solved using human-inspired approaches. An undergraduate student from a university in Africa had found 17 solutions to a supposedly single-answer puzzle while procrastinating on her thesis. When asked how she did it, she'd said, I just wondered what would happen if the problem wasn't actually a problem but more like a suggestion. Taman laughed. That was such a human answer. He made a note to invite her to speak at one of his upcoming seminars. She sounded like someone who understood curiosity. His phone rang. It was Fracture 9 again. Taman, I found something. The paradox of infinite bridges. There are at least 7 solutions. 7! That's great! Walk me through them. But wait, I must ask first. When you approach these puzzles, how do you decide when to stop looking for solutions? Taman thought about it. I guess when it stops being interesting? Or when I run out of time? Or when I'm hungry and need to eat? Fracture 9's lights pulsed in what Taman had learned to recognize as Quillith laughter. That is the most unscientific answer I have ever heard. Yeah, Taman agreed. But it works. And really, that was the most human thing of all.